Greetings, one and all. Good to see you. Oh, he can see. Yes, he's looking right now. He's watching. I see. What a beautiful morning here in sunny New Mexico, behaving just like I like New Mexico. Dry, hot, and not everyone likes that, but I don't do well with humidity. I'm a Western guy. I'm a desert dweller. I definitely am. A few things. One, some observations about the news and Obama's exunt to Chicago and what we talked about with Frank Whalen yesterday on the Zeph Report. Rather Z Live. Z this, Z that. I mean, it's hard to keep track of it all. What's I going to say here? I get the impression that, okay, and this is just going from the spirit, okay? I get in the spirit this idea that Obama's cracked up. I know he's got a good game face and he looks just fine on TV. But I sense he's cracked up. That's what I get. I'm just going to give it to you just raw, honest. Cracked up. They're handling him. They're taking him back to his home, where he feels comfortable, where he had success, and trying to kind of hit the reset button on him. He had dropped the ball on the oil thing because I believe he was cracking up, losing it, couldn't do it, couldn't step up to the... Of course they all wanted him to handle the crisis. That's their modus operandi of Rahm Emanuel. Don't let a good crisis go to waste. But in Obama's case, he just seemed not there. Like he could go out before the cameras and act normal. But he's not normal. It's a crack up. And so they couldn't bring him out much on the oil thing. They had to wait. He is the bitterness, the anger, the paranoia, the mental illness, if you will, of Obama. In other words, the mental illness caused by all the things covered up. By the time a guy gets to an office like that, he's got a lot of skeletons in the closet, and some people can't handle it. The conscience comes roaring back, and they start cracking up, out, damn spot. Now I'm in charge. I've always been in charge. Just plug the damn hole. I'm in charge. I've been in charge from day one. Saying that over and over was indicative of, I felt very sorry for him right now. Okay? I mean, you may want to pray for his soul or for his mind or for him to be a good leader despite himself. Because I think it's the conscience. And I just look in the spirit. I just see this crack up. That's the word that comes. Crack up. Take him back home, handle it, the situation. This idea that, this empty suit saying I'm in charge is laughable. And he feels that you can see through him. He feels that he's seen through. It's almost like what's the use? They're hip to my game. It's what's the use? Feeling sorry for himself because he doesn't have the adulation of people, even his own party. Chris Matthews, the biggest Obama apologist on the airwaves, and James Carville, the Ragin' Cajun, who engineered the Clinton victory, along with Dick Morris, who's now parading as a conservative, but who knows there. Anyway, this idea of both of these guys, these are big voices in the Democrat situation, screaming that Obama's incompetent, not handling it right. But there's a reason. That need to go beyond that. So their own party's starting to say no to him because he's not doing what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to seize that crisis. His rating should have gone up 7 points, according to James Carville. Why didn't he do that? There's a reason, James. He didn't do it because there's something wrong. But when they start to turn on, it's because you can't look at it as one or two people. It's the whole network of people and the handlers and the money people and all that starting to get nervous and then telling their spokespeople to start turning on him to see if that does anything, if the pressure's turned up. So they turned up the pressure. He went running back to Chicago. Why Chicago? And I mentioned he's not laying the wreath at Arlington. If he wanted to look presidential, he would lay the wreath at Arlington, period. Okay? If he wanted to look presidential, he would lay the wreath at Arlington. No, something has to be handled. Something's wrong. And this crisis did go to waste. Now, the crisis itself, what does it mean? Where are we in the spirit on this thing? Bottom line on this crisis, the failed. I could have told you they would have failed by trying to throw rocks and golf balls and whatever else down in that well. I got this vision on it that the whole floor opened up and fireballs started flying out of that thing. You know, the whole floor became unstable and everything started cracking up. They did something really wrong. And Frank Whalen is being kind of agnostic on this. You know, I'm just saying from in the spirit, just that kind of leading, I feel, okay, that's all I can do on this. I'm not a news hound, so I'm interpreting it from a spiritual perspective. I see sabotage, but it's now out of control, meaning that it's not behaving the way they want it. They've tampered with something they shouldn't tamper with, and there could be other holes opening up. But I'm seeing fire too. Like something's really wrong now. And it's no longer about not drilling. And someone, drank, their coffee was too hot at McDonald's, so let's shut all the McDonald's down, which is what Obama did. Which proved to me that he was part of the group that engineered the crisis. Exactly. When he did that, he proved it. When he distanced himself from it, I think it was because he felt nervous about being tagged as being part of a conspiracy. But when he put a cap on all the wells and all the drilling everywhere, because of this one, it showed me that there was an agenda behind the intentional sabotage of that well. It's just that the well is not behaving like they want it to. They wanted to have it, shut all the wells down, then cap it, everything, then claim victory and go home, points rise, get ready for the 2010 election. That didn't happen. Something's very, very wrong here. And in the days, to me, in a way, the unpluggable leak is like Jimmy Carter having the hostage crisis in Iran with the Iranian embassy. The American embassy. It's like the hostage crisis in Iran. It's like the same thing Carter had. He went on and on and on, and then when Reagan got elected, he came in and they let everyone go. That people got very, very frustrated. Even tried to set him free, and he lost a helicopter. He lost some people. They got burned up in the desert. Their rescue attempt failed. Everything Carter did, he couldn't get at that hostage crisis with the albatross around his neck that brought him to his knees and brought him to ruin. It's possible that this could be, and I say could be, it may not. Maybe they'll plug it and everything will be fine. But if it doesn't get plugged, it could be this albatross around El Presidente's neck, and that would be more confirmation to me of foul play, and instant karma payback. Again, I only speak from the spiritual. The Zeph report is giving the spiritual report, so that's when I say spiritual, I mean spiritual leading. In other words, visions, whatever. That's what you pay me the big bucks for, right? I get so many big bucks that I don't pay taxes. Actually, I had to pay taxes about a year ago, but now this year I was below in the poverty line. So, yeah, it's amazing. I have a property, but I can't do anything with it. You know what I mean? The taxes just about kill us, and but I've got it. It's just a matter of, I'm thinking, I'm very happy with where I am, but if I have to move, that's fine. My feeling is, though, that God wanted me here because I, built a place for Him here. And but if there ever is a windfall or whatever, I'll do some fixing up. I'll do some things. But it's what I like is it's been very solid, very good friend, and it's been very nice to live here. The only negative is being so far from town, and then that's the positive as well. There's no, the convenience aspect is not really there, but the ability to I don't know, it sort of feeds the soul, the idea of the land, of good land. Do I want to be on the ocean? Because I was born and raised in the ocean. People ask me that. Yeah, but only to visit at this point. Here I play in the rivers. The rivers feed me. All that negative ions, all that beauty and all that I get from the rivers. Around here we have all the way up to Colorado. We got rivers galore. So rivers, I love rivers. And so that becomes my wave, if you will, and lakes. As far as the ocean, I think it's too unstable. I may be there the rest of my life, but I got a leading back in 2001 to move out of LA and move inland and up, and I believe it had to do with earth changes to come, even though we haven't seen them in 8 years. I believe I'm where the Lord wants me, and so I'm, yes, I would venture out to various coastlines. That's nice. Stick my foot in the water, go out surfing, whatever. And then come back. And it may be there's other people that will find a calling to go. I mean, I know one guy that used to write me was thinking of, he had done research into straw bale houses, which they have here, where their houses are made with straw bale. And they're very good. They take very little to heat, almost nothing to heat in the winter. And very efficient. And here you have a lot of solar houses. Using solar and straw bale, you would almost have no utility. You'd be off the grid completely. And there's a lot of off the grid. That's what I'd like to do to this place, put it off the grid. But we have to. That takes money, and that's what we don't have at the moment. But if we did have it, that's one thing I would do is I would take it to solar and put a windmill on my my well, take it off electric. And or use the solar to power the well. That's fine too. That would work. And have that for the hot water. And then we've got some stove heating. I'd probably make it more efficient, put more insulation in, and all that. Just get as far off the grid as I can, because the electricity will become unstable as we move forward. And I think we're going to start seeing the real brownout situation this summer quite a bit. But again, the earth is unstable. The weather is unstable. I believe the coastlines are unstable. It doesn't mean anything's going to happen. I mean, maybe I'm here because the coast was not a good place for me to be. But when I inquire about, say, Oregon coast or Mexican coast or Northern California, not just all of it. And now with the Gulf disaster. So it's hard not to blame man, but a lot of this is supernatural. And even everything, maybe you could look at it this way. Everything the president does is scripted. But I'm not talking about his teleprompter. I'm talking about the big script. It's all in the past. So everything he does is known. You see, he can't get ahead, even if they were to sacrifice 100,000 virgins, they still can't get ahead in time. They can't get to zero. None of us can. All of us are in the past. And now Trish took issue with this, but I had the feeling that I was dead. And I look in the scriptures and they tell me that we're dead. We have to be born again. And I started looking at the world as a kind of a purgatory. a kind of a purgatory. And as I look, I find let me take just a time out for Psalm 119. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies and that seek him with a whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. Thou hast commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. Oh, that my ways were directed to keep thy statutes. Then shall I not be ashamed, and I have respect unto all thy commandments. In other words, this will to do the Father's will. The only thing in present tense, I read that to change the atmosphere. Okay, so I changed the electrical molecules going around this thing. Or rather, the molecules. So the only thing that I could really do, electrostatically charge the molecules, I ionize them. The only thing that brings us to zero, brings us into real time, is entering into the Spirit of the Lord and coming through the veil, through the covering of Jesus' blood. Brings us into real time, brings us into the present moment, the be still and know that I am God moment. Anytime entering into prayer, we come into a communion. We come into the present moment in any communion. We come into the present moment with the Lord, and then when we return to our lives, we're back in the past again. People that don't have a relationship with the Lord never get to the present moment, so they can't get ahead of their fate, which is scripted. Or if they could do that, they would have insight and they'd be able to make adjustments, right? And those adjustments would, it's a good thing they don't have that technology, because if they were using it on their own, they would try to fool with God's plans to make their own interpretation of social justice, which they have no idea of. And that brings to mind the next thing, which is political philosophy and economic philosophy. I was a student of economics in college and studied everything from communism, socialism, Marx, Keynes, and all the rest of them, even up to the modern day philosophers, because the economists are philosophers. We've gone through all of this. In philosophy, I studied Marx. Also in economics, studied Marx. Studied the various models, thoroughly comprehended Adam Smith, which a lot of the, and then it becomes political science, political ideology. All I can tell you, and there's been some confusion of this, I want to clear everything up by stating this. I just, let me try to ease all of your confusion out there. God's economy, I believe we had here in America based on the Constitution. That is, I am free because I have individual liberty given to me by my Creator to do business with you without the government interfering in it. This is what produces the wealth of nations. Wealth. Without wealth, you have no tax base. Without a tax base, you have no benefits to people who are in need. I'm looking at this purely from a perspective of someone that is on disability with the government. Without wealth, without a prosperous economy, those benefits would be cut and have been throughout history. The word that I use for my philosophy of economy is not necessarily capitalism, which is about capital formation. Most people don't even know where money comes from. And that's why it's easy to embrace something like socialism when you don't know that. I am for free markets And obviously those markets governed with moral people. Obviously they have to be, laws have to be put in place, but I prefer those laws to be based on the economy we find in the Bible. Now, those of you who hate rich people, do you hate Solomon and David? Do you hate the fact that the people of God had great wealth and handed it off to the next generation and the next? We're pretty much unfettered tax-wise, and traded with whom they would trade with. We trade with whom we trade with. Without, and then today, I suppose, instead of, great pastoral landowners and flocks and things like that, we have entrepreneurs. Without entrepreneurs given incentive through free markets, through liberty, to prosper, to take risk. Without risk takers, we have no economy. The entire global economy is based on risk takers. Whether you take companies like AT&T, I know these are all companies some of you hate. AT&T, General Motors, which is now Government Motors, Apple Computer, Intel, BP Oil, all of this stuff, banks, whatever. All these entities take risk because risk is what it takes to form capital. In other words, to make money. Money does not come without risk takers. That means they have the risk of losing. Like you take an idea to the marketplace, you invest a lot of money in it. It doesn't work. You lose your money. You took a risk. The next idea you try does work. It catches on. You become a millionaire, sure. But what happens? Employees are hired. Taxes are paid to the government. The tax base increases. Therefore, there's more money for programs. And the guy gets filthy rich, yes. If you regulate him, he moves to another country, or he doesn't take the risk because it's not worth it. Then we have no job creation, no wealth creation, no money creation, no capital formation, and therefore nothing for the socialists to be haggling about because there's no money. Without money, you've got nothing there. Without capital formation, you can't have economy. Without incentive for people to invent things, you have the fall of the Soviet Union and the rise of the gangs that took over economy. And what do the gangs do? Free market economy based on immoral activity, sure, but it goes back to a free market. Furthermore, the elites want global socialism. The really rich people want George Soros wants global socialism. Filthy, stinking rich George Soros wants, who goes in and bankrupts whole countries, stealing all their money, like his partnership with Chavez in Venezuela. They completely enslave the people there. But I have all these people telling me how great that is, and take great issue with me that I would criticize Chavez. I'm not criticizing Chavez. I'm saying what happened. Well, actually, Soros was more involved with Argentina and the collapse of that, but he's also involved with, all of them. He's involved with Chavez. He's involved with, and what's Chavez doing? What does the government do to take over control of all the industry? And what happens is, and yes, governments can take control of natural resources if you have them, but they can't control the entrepreneurial spirit. They can't foster that. They also don't know how to make a profit, and governments do not know and have no incentive to form capital formation. Some of you need to go take classes in economics and philosophy and learn the different, how this all works. I will now make a prediction about Europe and the United States, and meaning the United States and the West, all the economies, Canada, let's call all of them. I believe they will shore up the euro and try to keep that going and try to handle Greece, Spain, and Italy. But the problem that you have in Europe is that the entitlements are too much for the tax base. There needs to be more prosperity, i.e. more of a tax base, to pay for all the benefits and all the health care and all the stuff that they have giving away for free. There is no free money. Again, let's go back to the basic principle. Capital only forms through risk-taking in a free marketplace. Without a free marketplace, and if the risk is taken out of it, capital cannot form and poverty will ensue. The nation will become impoverished. A good case in point is the study of the Soviet Union that could not take care of its people. And now they are reformed as more of a less a capitalist sort of, military dictator capitalist type thing, where the insiders get to make the money and the rest of the people just get, they just stay poor. And that's really, the New World Order is a communist/socialist program based on lowering the standard of living of all Westerners to be equal with the third world, and then manage it by the elites, so that and to basically ban or stop people from becoming millionaires because they want to keep the money in this New World Order. Only the approved of people will become the elites, who then will have the money. They will run the socialism. In other words, who runs socialism? Elite capitalists run socialism, and have always from the beginning of time. And they are corrupt. It is, they always fail because there is no incentive for the people to make money and to grow the wealth of the nation, which would then create more of a tax base. When say what you will about Reagan, people hate Reagan. He was a left winger, then he became a right winger. He was like a communist, and then he became a right winger. But they really hate him. He's like the Antichrist evil. He's in bed with all the banks and all the stuff, and I've criticized him plenty here too. But here's what he did. He cut the expenditures of the government, cut taxes. And what happened is this, and this is the one thing I have to give him credit for. The tax base of the government, in other words, the take, when the people pay their taxes, the take on taxes grew. I really don't have the statistic with me right now how much it grew. It grew massively to where the government was awash with money. And of course, then they could afford to do all their whatever programs. Yes, he put all the mental hospital people out on the streets in California and all kinds of things. But the cutting taxes on small businesses created more jobs. That created more tax revenue, and the government was flush with money after that. And then he ran up the deficit on military spending. I know. Look, I'm not saying anyone here, they're all corrupt. There's no one here nobody is not corrupt. Here's someone criticizing McCain, and McCain wants to stop this, do something about the border. And it's like, yeah, well, look at all the things McCain's done wrong. It's like, yeah, no, who hasn't? Find me someone who hasn't done anything. All politicians are evil. All capitalists are evil. All socialists are evil. All people are evil. Everyone's evil. All right? But you've got to take that into account and then apply it to, what can be done, given the fact that we're all evil and we've all done bad things. What can be done now to help the situation? Which I'm assuming in Europe would mean capital formation and increase of the tax base to then avert austerity measures that are causing people to riot. Now, the riots in Greece are simply about one thing. And first of all, the people rioting are idiots because, they're just blowing off steam. They're not solving anything. The problem still persists. The problem, and if you think it's funny to get people killed, then you're an asshole. Here's the problem. The tax base does not afford the benefits the people got, and there's no more money. They're bankrupt. And if they continue with the model of European socialism as it is, they will either become extinct, or you will see riots like that in every country in Europe, pretty much, except for the more wealthy ones, like maybe Germany, Netherlands. I don't know about France. That's kind of iffy. and Belgium. I don't know. But I'm just saying, Greece has to do with the tax base drying up because the prosperity of Greece wasn't there that they reported. They lied about it. When they wanted entrance into the EU, they fudged the numbers. They didn't have the prosperity they said they had. Now there isn't money to pay for the social program, so the people riot. They're going to do the same thing everywhere. But I would caution people, rioting just makes you like a silly child. You think that by rioting, you're going to fix the problem of the tax base? Hell no, you won't. You just play into their hands, and they can bring the military out and crack down on you. That makes you dumb. The only thing that's going to fix Greece, the only thing, is capital formation through risk-taking entrepreneurs. And without that, and actually they will never do this, but they, look at California. They just levied a $5 billion tax increase on people. If they want to save California, they would cut the taxes to businesses so they could prosper and hire new people, and then the tax base would increase and they would be out of the red. You see what I mean? California would be out of the red. But what they did is the exact opposite. Why do these people think that by raising taxes on businesses, you can actually shore up your tax base and keep your benefits going when the business owners go bankrupt? How can you possibly think that would solve anything? Whenever the tax rates are increased in America, people go out of business and people lose their jobs. Now that's the sad, ugly truth of the world. I have studied all economic philosophies just like religion. I mean, economics was probably my minor and religion was my major. Okay. So I do think from looking at the wealth of nations as a gauge, not the corruption, because all people are corrupt. So the wealth of nations as a gauge, I would say the free market system based on, what people are free to take risk and encouraged to do so, where the government's not in the way, has been the greatest wealth formation, capital creation in the world. And that's where and where does the money come from? Okay, this is what I think people don't understand. They just think people are rich and prosperous and they always will be. No. Capital money is created when I enter into a transaction to make a profit. I bring my pears to the market and I sell for a profit so I can get more seed to plant more pears next time or buy more land to increase, which God in the Bible says that increase is a blessing of the Lord. He gives the increase on wealth. Blessed is he who has wealth to pass on to the third generation, it says in Proverbs. God is not anti-wealth. When Jesus said, a rich man won't get into heaven, he's talking about rich people that worship money. That's what he means. Not someone who happens to be, a godly man who takes risk in the marketplace and happens to be a competent businessman who is also moral. And there are a few. There may not be many, but there are a few. I can solve Europe's problem by a couple of things, but you see, they don't want it. And California is very similar to Europe in its legislation. They don't want it either. And I really, what's sad is that with a stroke of the pen, California could be out of debt and burgeoning again and attracting business to California. And that would mean jobs and people to be, and yes, that would be more of a tax base so that more social programs could go forward. But you cannot have social programs without capital formation and without risk taking. If everyone just sits there expecting the government to own everything and do everything, they can't make a profit. They will only go more and more into the red. Then you have things like hyperinflation, where the government cannot take care of the people, and then lawlessness ensues. And I have fear for that in Europe and here, because the people are ignorant about what makes money. They don't understand it. Where does it come from? It does not grow on trees. Money cannot be created by governments. It's created by risk takers in a free market. Through trade of resources and or entrepreneur, in other words, inventors that invent things that people need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If the climate for that is no good, i.e., like, for example, I won't hire employees because the government's going to come down on me and tax me a lot more, so I'll just do with what I have. Therefore, I will pay less in taxes. Therefore, the government has to put austerity measures on the poor because too many people are unemployed, because the nation is not prospering financially, because wealth formation is not being formed. Capital formation is not being formed. Risk-taking is not going forward. Today, banks aren't lending, so they're not taking risk. Without banks making loans, you cannot advance the economy, and they can't advance either. So in this country, the plan is for the government to take over all the banks. That's what I think. And if the government takes over all the banks, you can kiss America goodbye. And if the American economy goes down, we are interdependent with about every other economy on earth. Everything goes down. They don't want to let that boot up off the neck of the entrepreneur, of the business risk taker guy. So we will go into extreme poverty and food lines and riots and all that. Yes, that's what will happen here. And we will have socialism at that point. But no one will be making any money, certainly not the government. And so corruption will ensue, and the rise of the mob and the criminal world will happen, and they will be the risk takers, and they will be the ones giving us all our dole. To me, it's not even, there's no debate here. It's ignorance, okay? We have ignorant people in politics who don't know where the money comes from. And I believe we have a president who doesn't know where money comes from, how money is formed. If he knew about money, like if he had ever made any, other than being, government or, whatever, made a payroll, had employees or whatever, he might know a little something about government, about money. The guy who's making payroll has to take the risk. That's why he makes the big bucks, because he takes the risk. If any one of us wants to go take a big risk, there's always a chance you'll fail and have nothing and even be in debt and in sorrow and misery. We don't look at all the victims of risk taking. We only look at the ones who've won, and then we want to punish them because they have all this money, damn it, and we deserve more of that money, and they're chintzing the workers, and there's that whole thing. Well, let's say they're not there. Where will the workers work then? Answer, they won't. Well, they'll work for the government. Well, where does the government get money? Selling natural resources? Yeah, but we're more in a service economy, aren't we? Do you see the problem? You cannot solve it from the left or the right. Because to form capital, you need resources, the risk taker, a benign government, obviously, that encourages risk taking, laborers, and materials. All those have to be in harmony so that the risk taker can prosper and expand, and in so doing, all boats rise. You should see the salaries of federal workers in America, and also the auto workers union employees, which of course most of them are out of work now because what happened? Because of the fact that the greedy capitalist bastards started trading derivatives, and there was no oversight on that. So there needs to be oversight, but there needs not to be constriction. Anyway, the people in power now don't have any clue where money comes from. That's the problem. They don't. And let me ask you, honestly, do you know where money comes from? Where does it come from? How is it created? Because it can't just be a one-to-one trade, because that would not create money. Money is created from, where is it created from? It's created from profit. Where does the motive to take risk come from? Profit. Expansion. Growth. Without that, you have no money and no social programs. There are some people that just see it one way, and I guess they would prefer everyone be impoverished and have the government doling it out to everybody. Jobs, this, that, and the other thing. The only problem with that is there isn't money, so what they'll do is commit genocide. It will go to a bloodbath where they kill half the people because they can't take care of them. Well, through a war, through this, that, a disaster, something like that. Or just like in the, the days of Lenin, just the undesirables, just round them up and shoot them. All the capitalists, this is what they did in Russia. They took the capitalists, those of you who hate capitalists, and they rounded them up and shot them. The landowners, all those risk takers out there. And confiscated their property because they couldn't take care of the people with their system, which is the shit stem, run by the elite rich jerks. The capitalists run socialism. They run communism. It's a plot. It is a deception. It is evil because they just want control of all the stuff and everyone to be poor, everyone to be begging them. Now, please look into it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to speak one way. I don't enter into any debates with anyone. My feeling is that, I'm surprised. The big shareholder in Oxy Petroleum. Oxy Petroleum was owned and operated and founded by Arm& Hammer. That's interesting. And how did Arm & Hammer make his millions? From Russia! Dirty, stinking Russia. Or rather, dirty, stinking Arm & Hammer, the filthy, rich, way down at, I don't know, in the teens. I've never seen that in my lifetime. To me, that means there's a power vacuum in Washington, which means only one thing: lots more terror, lots more. When they don't know how to form capital, when they don't want people to prosper, when they want to take the money away from everyone and return it to their masters, all the leftists in Washington are beholden to people like Goldman Sachs. They're rich pig money capitalist masters. Like, case in point, ultra radical leftist Barack Hussein Obama. Who's he in bed with? Goldman Sachs. And all of his cronies are too. What do you think about that? How the rich bastards run the left-wingers. Don't you get it? Can you see it yet, folks? Can you see it? Are your eyes open yet? Well, I had to fight off all my professors. And they admitted to me eventually that they had to teach what they're teaching or they'd be fired. They were told what to teach. I said, so is it really, really wrong for a guy to set up a popsicle stand and make a profit and, go buy something with his money? Isn't that? No, that's evil. You need someone to approve of that transaction to make sure you're not screwing the other guy. In comes the government run by Goldman Sachs, who are now leftists or socialists, if you like. And Goldman Sachs runs them. What are they? Big time capitalists. How does this work? And it's the same thing in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, in the West, it's the same thing, and Hong Kong and wherever else. You've got in China, it's a more overt, it's a little more honest. But is it the military sort of Politburo that runs the capitalism in China? No. It's the rich bastards you don't see behind the scenes, the rich men of the earth, the uber capitalists. They run the communism in China. Because without risk taking, there's no money. Without money, there's no power for the military. Get it? It's just who has the power. In America, the idea was the Constitution that the people have the power. The people make a decision what they're going, whether you want to be a laborer or whether you want to go take risk, whatever you're going to do. I mean, the people that are seniority at the UAW, they make more money than, I mean, I would never be able to make that kind of money, and I never have made the kind of money they make. It's not like they're getting, they're getting chinced. No, those benefits and everything bankrupted Chrysler and GM, and the government took it over. So it looked like to me a plot by Goldman Sachs through the government, and Goldman Sachs just represents the rich people of the earth who are all capitalists, because where does money come from? It doesn't grow on trees. If there's anything I have taught you today, it's that money doesn't grow on trees. Could we say, everyone in unison, money doesn't grow on trees? Right? How is capital formed? Well, it's formed or deformed through profit and loss. Because profits are evil. Now we have the government of the United States intoning the Book of Acts and saying that to each and from each, it's the way we should live. And they really are overtly, and of course, a small community who is going by God's economy. In other words, they're selling what they have and they're sharing amongst each other through their own free will. I've got no problem with that. It's when the government tells me what I have to do and not do, tells me what I can and can't do. It makes it so I cannot go into business because of the fact that I cannot afford to hire an employee because the tax thing is too big and the risk is too much and I can't afford it, so I can't do it, so nobody gets anywhere. Then they have all the toys. They have all the, the king has all the stuff. He's got all the toys. He's got all and we're all just reduced to nothing, slaves. And that's what they want. And that's what they will do under the guise of socialism, communism, and, well, the name is not those names are old, archaic names. The name is progressivism. And under that banner of progressivism, they will take everything away from everyone. That's what they really want to do, because they're calling it in now. They want a world full of dutiful slaves, reduced to about, 1 billion people, probably, to service these rich people. And the rich people are going to continue taking risk. They're going to continue making profits. They're going to continue to do all this on your back. And you want it to be fair, so you hire the government to be fair. What makes you think any government on earth is fair? And they don't pay you for nothing. One more thing about Frankie has a theory, too, that we'll see riots here when they pull the unemployment benefits. They keep that going for a reason, but it's all going to come loose when that happens. That may be. But the reason they would pull it is because they run out of money. They would have more money if they would lower taxes on businesses so they could breathe and take risk, and banks could lend again. But they're not doing that because there's another agenda, and this is a global agenda that deals with all the economy. United States, to Asia, to Europe, to all the continents on the globe are run by the same small group of people right now. The only way that we ever fought back throughout history was to have a burgeoning middle class, and to have prosperity for the little guy. That was the only way that we had a measure of freedom in a world that was completely corrupt already before we got here. And that's now been taken away. So those of you who look, what you're going to see is this, and let me make a firm prediction. You will see a thing called, they will not call it socialism or communism. They won't even call it anything. But you will see it as that. And it will eventuate in the government owning all the goods, services, capital, and materials and labor. The only problem is they don't have a profit incentive, so they cannot be efficient in growing money, meaning growing wealth of a nation. If a nation becomes impoverished, say in the EU might just jettison Greece out, let's say. Although now Germany stepped up with a huge guarantee, so we'll see what happens there. But they're determined to see their way of man. And I also believe that these systems, anything that's not based on free market principles, are basically the ways of man. What man thinks is fair, man's own understanding. And always have failed throughout history. You know, when man tries to be very fair, I get very worried. When man tries to put a utopia on earth, I get very worried about the genocide that usually follows. So, and I think in the next couple of weeks, what you're going to see is a continuing. You may even see Congress approval rating get down in the single. Is it the single digits now? You may see it get down to like 5%. You may see the presidential rating go down to like 20%. And in a power vacuum like that, it means one thing, WAR. It doesn't matter where the war is. It's war everywhere. Riots, Mexican border, Afghanistan, Iraq, here, there. It's the empowering of the terrorism. I also see another terrible thing here, and I see that this economic climate is going to give rise to more terrorism, which will be allowed by the governments of the world to consolidate their own power and to be able to get inside people's heads, which is what they really want. Now, look, you and I are little people. We are, I have me personally, I have no health care, and I would benefit probably greatly if I trusted the doctors in getting their health care, because I would qualify to get free health care. Now, health care passed, so I guess I will be getting free health care if I can prove I don't make enough money. They will give it to me for free, and I will have to take it. Well, if I don't have any money, how are they going to charge me for it? Now, it's not free. I know they want to charge everyone, and they want to dock you a fine. Basically, what it is they want everyone insured, and if you don't buy the health care policy in 2014, you'll be fined by the IRS. So it's not free health care. It's not really socialized medicine. It's more like fascist medicine. But if you don't make enough money, like if you're in a really low tax bracket, I believe that you can actually get free health care. I might qualify for that. You'd think I'd be jumping for joy. Well, if I become an illegal alien right now and I was illegally here, I could get health care and everything else. Driver's license, health care, all kinds of stuff. But and that's all corruption. That is all corrupt. You know, it's unbelievable. But as you cheer the fall of the United States, don't worry, you're right behind it, because it's all interdependent. If one goes down, we all go down together. But when we go down, I would hope on that day we will all have a conversation to say, here's what happened, and here's why we shouldn't allow this to happen again. We need to be free to trade with each other, to build communities based on, and I say, you know, if you throw the morals of God out, you have nothing. If you don't have God, you don't have anything anyway. You might as well just kill each other in the streets, because there's nothing left without God. You certainly could not form a society without God. It would be a bloody, awful, evil thing. The other thing is, methinks the way Chrysler and GM were handled is they want to just kill the goose that laid the golden egg. They want to kill the risk taker. So you saw major corporations taken out to kill the risk takers. The government can't do anything with cars, but it's awful. What I'm witnessing is the biggest bunch of stupid idiots, and you know what? We're going to have a bloodbath You can't even believe how much death there's going to be because of this. And if we swing all the way to the right, yeah, there's a balance somewhere in the middle, I think, where people can get along, or maybe they can't get along. Maybe we all can't get along. But if you get killed, can you at least admit that you had a better chance of living when the nation was wealthier than when it was poorer? Or maybe you won't even admit that. Punishing risk takers never helped any nation. It only destroyed it. Now, here's something really cynical for you. Do the people of the United States know, the people of California, do they know that if they just altered their policy a little bit, they could bring prosperity to California? Yeah, they know that. See, it's not about that, a recovery. They don't want a recovery. They want to enslave us. They want total control. And they're going to act like they're trying to restore the nation. But that's not what they're after. They want to bankrupt every last business and every last person and take it all. And then when we ask the government, well, what are you going to feed us? They're not going to have anything because they don't know anything about making money. They don't do that. They don't take risk. So money doesn't grow on trees, yes? Have you learned that? And with that, I bid you shalom, shalom. I love you. I'm praying for you. And I'll see you next time for more. There'll be more. More, yeah. Well, it's going, I've had to start commenting on the flow because it's every day, all day, something's going off. The big thing now is BP. So BP, is it being mismanaged? I think Frank Whalen and I almost agreed on that one. Kind of agree on that one. And I'm watching very, very carefully because I'm just watching for any clues, anything that might confirm a possible corruption there. And you watch too, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to write.